the first gunshot came from the window, so like I started getting out the way because the shots just came after that.
After the first shot is fired, Tiffany says Michael Brown begins to run away from the Ferguson police officer.
After the shot, the kid breaks away and he started running away from the cop. The cop follows him, kept shooting, and the kid body jerked as if he was hit. And after his body jerk, he turned around, he puts his hands up, and the cop just continues to walk up on him and shoot, and he goes all the way down.
I concluded that he was shot at least 6 times. We've got one to the very top of the head, the apex. We've got one that entered just above the right eyebrow. We've got one that entered the top part of the right arm. We've got a graze wound, a superficial graze wound to the middle part of the right arm. We've got a wound that entered the medial aspect of the right arm, and we've got a deep graze wound that produced a laceration to the palm of the right hand.
You took my son away from me. You know how hard it was for me to get him to stay in school and graduate? You know how many black men graduate? Not many. Because you bring them down to this type of level where they feel like I don't got nothing to live for anyway. They're going to try to take me out anyway.
We are willing to be arrested.
We're here because we love the young folk. We want to bear witness. We want them to know that there's some older generation, brothers and sisters of all colors, who are willing to put their bodies on the line so that justice can roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream.
And basically what I said was, I seek refuge in Almighty God against the enemy Satan, and with the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. I try to open with that because I try to open with the best construction. And my thing is, we try to get this thing going. God is the best construction in all our lives, so I try to open up with that. With that, I'm Captain Faheem Akil, the Wilmington Police Department. I'm a 30-year veteran. I've been through various divisions within the department, and I'm committed to trying to make a change, not only for the city, but for the department itself.
What is your take on the situation in Ferguson?
I know that many Americans have been deeply disturbed by the images we've seen in the heartland of our country as police have clashed with people protesting. Today I'd like us all to take a step back and think about how we're going to be moving forward. This morning I received a thorough update on the situation from Attorney General Eric Holder, who's been following it and been in communication with his team. I've already tasked the Department of Justice and the FBI to independently investigate the death of Michael Brown, along with local officials on the ground. The Department of Justice is also consulting with local authorities about ways that they can maintain public safety without restricting the right of peaceful protest and while avoiding unnecessary escalation. I made clear to the Attorney General that we should do what is necessary to help determine exactly what happened and to see that justice is done.
At 11:51, there was a 911 call from a convenience store. At 11:52, dispatch gave a description of a robbery suspect over the radio. A further description, more detail, was given over the radio. At 12:01 p.m., our officer encountered Michael Brown on Canfield Drive. At 12:04, a second officer arrived on the scene immediately following the shooting.
God rest his soul, he gone. That was mama, I guess.
Johnson says they kept walking, causing the officer to confront the boys, first from his car, then got out of the car, firing a shot. Johnson says him and Brown were scared and ran away from the officer.
He shot again, and once my friend felt that shot, he turned around and he put his hands in the air, and he started to get down, but the officer still approached with his weapon drawn, and he fired several more shots.
No justice, no peace. Instantly, hundreds gathered, angered and saddened by what they call a complete overreaction by the officer. Now a family is demanding answers. The crowd became more angered, even someone firing shots. No one was hurt. Meanwhile, Brown's body laid in the street.
It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
Well, Ferguson is not really anything new. And what I mean by that, there's been discrepancies and there's been discomfort between the law enforcement community as well as the African American, Hispanic, and what we could say those who are more less fortunate poor communities. What you have in Ferguson is that you have two entities that believe that they have a way of enforcing or getting rid of crime. From a law enforcement standpoint, it's that it's us who understand law enforcement, and we're going to go in and we're going to take care of the problem. The only problem with that is most of the law enforcement officers that probably are in command or you could say enforcing that area may not live there or really understand those individuals that are there. So what you have is you have a lack of communication. What you have is you have that disparity. Ferguson could happen anywhere. We've seen many cases recently with the Trayvon Martin case, some other cases with Rodney King. There's been many cases that we can talk about that the community feels as though that, hey, it's open season on us. And no matter what is done, the officers are exonerated. Now, although that may seem like it's the truth, it's not really absolutely true. But the perception is worse than anything else. And that's the perception that's been put out there.
State Police Patrol took over the operations in Ferguson. Was that a good thing?
Well, when you had mass chaos at that point, you had individuals that were unruly. If the local law enforcement at that time needed support, then yes. One thing I will say about what I noticed that was done that most people didn't really pay attention to was Captain Ron Johnson.
No tear gas, no riot gear. Instead, call it street diplomacy.
How you doing, baby? Hey, you gonna get this together? And we're gonna try. We're gonna try to get it together.
Peaceful protest. We love Afro.
That's my grandson.
All right, how you doing? How old are you? 7. All right, you studying hard? All right. My man.
Yes, sir. How you doing, sir?
You are the man.
Yeah, we're trying to make it back.
You are making a difference. You're making a real difference. We'll keep up the good work.
All right.
Get a little bit of rest.
I will.
All right?
I will.
I'm gonna check with your wife to see if you're in fact if you're doing that.
She's keeping me in
I'm
check.
checking on you, man.
She's a real boss.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Right. Good to see you, Captain.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Tell the Colonel I said hey.
I will.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right,
And his approach was totally different from the other officers that were there. He walked in the community, he tried to engage the community and de-escalate a lot of the situation that was there. And how did he do that? He did that by doing it the human way. He went in and understood their problems. He talked to them. He initiated a conversation. He allowed them to speak. He explained to them the situations of what the law is and how it affects them, and got their input of how they were affected by the law.
Right. Get down here. Come visit us down here. I've lived here 42 years.
Thank you.
I've lived here 42 years. I do live in this neighborhood. My mama lived right around the corner.
For instance, I think he talked to some young gentlemen that were sitting on the steps or corners. I'm not sure exactly what it was. And he said, your feelings of this situation. He said, listen, he said, I got no problem with you guys coming in and talking to us, but when you come at us all hard, disrespectful, then that's what it's going to be. Because I'm a man just like you. And if you come to me with respect, I'm going to come to you with respect. But if you're going to bring all that noise and that drama, then you know what? That's what it is. Because I'm fed up with that. And that was a statement from a young man who, if you looked at him from the outside, because it's Ferguson, because of the situation, you might have assumed he was involved in illegal activity, but he wasn't. He was just a young man who worked every day, who decided to say, listen, I'm a man just like you are, treat me with the same respect and you'll get that respect.
Is there a problem with hiring black officers in general, or are they not applying?
Well, I don't think it's a problem with hiring officers. You say black, I could use African American and Moorish officers. And the reason why I say that, because when you look at black, white, anything, it really doesn't have any landmass or any definitive identity as far as where it comes from. But for the sake of conversation, here's what some of the things that happen. Number one, let's look at how black officers or African American officers are viewed in the Hispanic and African American community. They're viewed as anti. They're viewed as the negativity. They're viewed as the occupying force. They don't look at it as an honorable profession. They don't look at it as you're coming in to enhance and be engaging in part of this community. You know, a lot of times the community looks at it that you are here to oppress and dominate, not to protect and serve. So what has to happen is you have to have officers that go into the community and start young, and you can start some that are in middle school, and engage with them. Let them know this is an honorable profession. If you don't like the way you're being treated or the way you're being forced, then what are you going to do about it? You talk about you don't want to be disrespected. You talked about you want to be, as they use, dissed or embarrassed and all those things. But you won't allow that to happen in your own circle, and you deal with it. So now that you have an opportunity for officers to be coming and hired, you shine them off. You shine them away. It has to be brought out that this is a legacy. It's an honorable profession. It has to be brought out that they are part of that community. It has to be brought out that they are going to engage with you. Now, we're not going to, throw you away and cover your criminal activity. No. But we're going to engage in you to get your mindset. If I can change your mind and your heart about what you're doing and give you a different way, it'll come up. Traditionally, some of the young officers, African American applicants, some of them have records. Some of them may have had to do a little thing as a juvenile. Some of them may have had some run-ins with the law that they don't feel as though that it would be feasible to them or they would be a good candidate. And a lot of times that's not necessarily true. All of us grew up in a community. I'll speak for myself. I grew up in a community where I really wasn't engaged with officers. It was under the Frank Rizzo administration. It was what they said, when they said it, when they did it, and how they did it. That was it. There was no conversation. There was no engagement. It wasn't until I got older and I met 2 African American officers and 1 European officer that changed my mindset from Philly officers. But at the time, it was engagement of anti. So that has to change. The hiring practices has to change. Is that you no longer have to be disrespectful, aggressive to be a good officer. It's not only about the rest, because if arrest was the answer, if that was the answer, law enforcement itself, why are we in this problem today and why are we having this conversation? Why is Ferguson the way it is? Why was LA the way it was? And systematically, we have to look at the historical aspects of law enforcement. I love what I do, but there was a time, no matter how important, no matter how much status I had, no matter how intelligent I was, no matter how athletic I was, I wasn't getting this job just because of what I was and what I came to the table with.
A question was brought to me. Did the police target the media in Ferguson? Reporters were prevented from reporting.
Well, I don't know. I can't say specifically for Ferguson. Let me give you an idea when we talk about a similar situation. There's a command post. And what that means is you have the area that is in containment as far as what's going on in Ferguson. And then you have an area where the media is supposed to be allowed to come within the command post and ask questions by one of the officers, usually a superior officer in command, to give some actual updating and feedback from them. What they didn't want to do is allow them to go in there, because here's the thing. Not only are they responsible for the officer's safety and well-being, the community's safety and well-being, as well as the news media. Contrary as that may seem, if in the news media, if he got out there and he got injured, ordinarily they're going to say, where were you guys on to protect him?
Wow, he's the one?
Yeah, this is media over here trying to cover the story. Hello? Yeah, well, we're getting shot at with rubber bullets right now, okay? So I'm just telling you.
Yeah, that's a rubber bullet, bro. They've been shooting them at everybody.
Okay. I mean, as of right now, we're okay until they start shooting rubber bullets in our direction. People hovering around.
Whoa, they threw it at the news. Well, I'm news too, but you know what I'm talking about.
We can't do this. We're moving. We're moving. Usher! Get Usher!
Is this different from what happened inside the McDonald's?
Yeah, a little bit, I think, Carol. Number one, where there's some protesters there, where their position was set up. Number two, the lights. Were they giving away the law enforcement's position? Well, law enforcement would come over and tell them, hey guys, can you turn your lights off because you're illuminating us to the crowd possible threat. But then to have the officers come in and mess with the cameras and mess with the lights, that's improper. That's not that
would have made me very angry as a journalist.
There's a command post. And what that means is you have the area that is in containment as far as what's going on in Ferguson. And then you have an area where the media is supposed to be allowed to come within the command post and ask questions by one of the officers, usually a superior officer in command, to give some actual updating and feedback from them. What they didn't want to do is allow them to go in there, because here's the thing. Not only are they responsible for the officer's safety and well-being, the community's safety and well-being, as well as the news media. Contrary as that may seem, if in the news media, if he got out there and he got injured, ordinarily they're going to say, where were you guys on to protect him? So there should be a command post put up. They probably did that. And when you talk about accounting as something that's this sensitive, you know as well as I do, when you can give one side of the story too soon or not enough, and now it gets out. Now you're talking about global media. You're talking about CNN.
My hands are up, bro. My hands are up.
Hands up. Raise and pointed. Happy birthday. Hands up. Hands up. Hands up.
You're gonna kill him.
He's trying to kill him. He's trying to kill him.
So in that video, the officer says the peaceful protesters, this is according to the unified forces here, says, look, this guy has his gun pointing at people, and the officer says, get back or I'm going to effing kill you. And then they ask he says it several times, and then they ask the officer his name, and he says, my name is Officer, go F yourself.
So it should be fair on both sides. It should be fair to the family of Brown and Ferguson, and should be fair and impartial to the law enforcement officers. We should get the information and factuals before we put out a lot of things, their perception. We already know what the feeling is. You've heard the comments that come out there. Here's another black male shot down and senselessly. Why? And there's nothing going to happen. That's their mindset. So in order to alleviate some of that, they have to, what I would say, engage the media, but engage the media in a way that they're not actively participating in that. Not to say that they can't report, but get the information properly before they just put it out.
At 12:01 p.m., our officer encountered Michael Brown on Canfield Drive. At 12:04, a second officer arrived on the scene immediately following the shooting. And there has been some questions about the calling of an ambulance. Was coming by immediately following the shooting, and they did respond to assess Michael Brown.
On Saturday, August 9th, an unarmed teenager named Mike Brown was shot 10 times by a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri.
I definitely seen one or two, but like I said, he still have his back turned, and I noticed that he passed his friend up to where his friend ran to. So that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna run outside with my phone and see what I could get. So I runs outside so quick. About the time I gets outside, he's already turned around, facing the officer. He's balled up. He have his arms like under his stomach, and he was like halfway down, like he was going down. And the officer lets out about 3 or 4 shots at him. So like I said, just like the body, I took a few pictures in the video, but how his body is on the ground, just like with his arms tucked in. That's how he got shot or whatever. But like I said, before he went down, he was already like this, and he took like 1 or 2 steps going towards the officer, and he, like I said, let go about 3 or 4 more shots at him. And
you're saying it's your impression that he was essentially falling down onto the ground or going down onto the ground, not because there is an account by a friend of the, or allegedly a friend of the officer, said that the officer is claiming, and sources with the investigation back this up, is what the officer's claim is that Mike Brown was running toward the officer. Did you see him running toward the officer in any way?
No, not after when he was running away. No, not at all. Like I said, by the time I come outside, I'm thinking that he's now hit after I seen the officer shooting at him while he was running away. So I'm thinking that he's hit because now he's turned around now like this, like he was going down. It didn't even look like that he was giving up. It just looked like, you know, oh, I'm hit, you know, I'm gonna go down now. That's what it looked like.
You're driving your car. You know who you are. You know you're a good citizen, you upstanding, everything. You see me, I have the marked police car, marked uniform. You know who I am. But I don't know who you are. So my initial engagement with you, when I stop you, has to be about perception, safety, and training. Now, once that is satisfied, then it should be de-escalated. I should know that you're not a threat. You're cooperating. For instance, if you're stopped by the police in that instance, here's things that I got from Delancey Davis as well as Rochelle Bilal of the National Black Police Officers Association. Stop. If you see the lights and siren behind the car, stop. Pull over, turn the interior lights on, place your hands on the windshield, and wait to be addressed. That way, you can see that you're totally compliant. The officer can see that you're compliant, and now you engage in a conversation. No need to house, no need for you to feel any type of anticipation of fear or aggression because you're cooperating. Will the officer stop, or has it hindered them? No. Will some officers think about how they engage? Absolutely. Could it amount to an officer maybe hesitating sometimes? Yes, I would be honest with you. There's always that possibility. But it's the other possibility that the community may think as though they may have to engage, or they're going to feel. Because I've heard that. When Rodney King was the biggest thing. Oh, this is another Rodney King beating? Oh, I'm Trayvon Martin? Oh, I'm Michael Brown now? So all of these cries and anguish is a lot of times of them dispelling invented. And as a professional, we have to be able to cipher through that. That's what we're commanded to do. That's what this badge of the public trust comes. You expect me to treat you with the Constitution, everybody. Life, liberty, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. And everybody should have that opportunity to do that. That's all you expect from me. You don't expect me to like you, because I may not expect you to like me, but you expect me to be professional. You expect me to do my job and as fair and as impartial as it's supposed to be done, regardless of where I live, regardless of what I look like, regardless of what I come with. So to answer your question shortly, after all that, there could be some officers, they may hesitate and look at it, but for the most part, they haven't, because we're still having this conversation.
So when should a police officer use his firearm?
Well, it's really hard to say when he should use. All departments have what we call use of force continuum. For instance, there's physical presence. I'm sitting here now in uniform. Obviously, you see me, you know I'm a police officer. That's one thing. Then it's my verbal commands, how I address you, sir. Then I can go with a little bit more sterning. Then it's low impact weapons. Capstun, taser, ASP. Now, if all those things on the continuum, for each time that I ask you to comply, and you fail to do that, and there's a serious threat in my mind of serious physical injury and or death to me or someone around me, then I'm able to use what we call lethal or deadly force. But sometimes it doesn't go to that use of force continuum. Sometimes I can walk right up to a situation domestic, or I can walk up to a corner, and next thing you know, he sees me, and as soon as he sees me, he or she reaches in their belt and they remove a weapon. At that point, there's no more visual commands except for police freeze. Now it has already escalated to deadly force. So it would depend on the situation.
Well, there was a situation a couple miles from Ferguson where a fellow walked up to the police and had a knife in his hand, and they told him to stop.
Well, now the police finna pull up. You see, y'all call the police? I didn't want it. He called you. I didn't want that shit. Come on, bagging up. Take it down, man. He got his gun up. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. They got their guns out.
Damn.
Oh my God.
Now you can nitpick about whether that was 3 to 4 feet away or if it was further out, as some are now saying. He did not have the knife raised, but he had a knife, right? That's not what disturbs me about the video. We're going to show you a close-up in a second. How many shots do they have to fire? Now I know I can hear the supporters now screaming, oh, they're supposed to shoot to kill, that's their standard operating procedure, that's what they're supposed to do. Well, that's what I'm arguing against. I don't think they should have shot to kill. That guy was dangerous. That's why the local community called it in. They say he's got a knife, he's wandering around. You see him, by the way, he's obviously got mental issues. He's saying, shoot me, kill me, right? He goes back and forth, back and forth. Can we not try a taser or something? But I think the most disturbing part is, the first couple of shots did it. He was already down. And whether he was dead, I don't know. He was down. I mean, he's on the ground. They're still firing. There's about 9 to 10 shots that were taken there. All right, look, let's take a little closer look here.
Oh shit, they got their guns out.
Damn. You see that guy go down and you hear another shot, another shot, another shot, another shot.
Our training, and a lot of people don't want to hear it, but our training is this. We don't pull this out. It's not like the Westerns, like the old cop shows where they shoot the gun out their hand or they maim it. If it happens to maim, that's part of it. We are trained to use deadly force. That when this is pulled, that means that it is above just a warning, above just a hunch. 9 times out of 10, it means that you're going to have to actively engage and possibly taking someone's life. So we're trained to use lethal force, and we train to shoot in center body mass. We train to enable and incapacitate a person. Now they say, well, you didn't have to shoot them 50 times, whatever. We're trained to neutralize the threat. And if anybody knows anything about a knife, if anybody knows how to use a knife in the proper hands of someone could take you out faster than any gun. Because the bottom line is, it takes you at least 21 feet for me to get out my gun efficiently, aim, line up, and shoot 21 feet actively before I can engage again. Whereas a knife, we're maybe 3, 4 feet apart. In that instance, it's all over, especially if the individual knows what he does. So, shooting in the legs, shooting other things, maybe, you know, when, you know, I don't like to second guess an individual, but here's the thing. If you have cover, if you can contain him, because the other threat is, suppose he comes at you, but then here comes a child and or a mother or an innocent person just walking by, and out of aggression and anger toward you, he goes after them. Now what? Now it went from just you and him to someone else being involved. So you want to have containment. If those things are containment, if you have that and you can, you know, contain the individual and be patient about that, then yeah, maybe they could have used that judgment. But at that time, we're only given a matter of seconds to react and have to do it for life and property, well as their life as well as the individual life that's out there. So, but we don't maim and we don't shoot guns out their hand. We don't even shoot warning shots. That's what we don't do.
How do you think the situation in Ferguson will, in the end, result in the change of policy in policing, or what's your feel about Ferguson and what has actually went on there? I mean, do you think things were done right?
Well, I don't know if things were done right. I would have to, you know, because I want to believe that the administration, and as serious as this incident has been, I would want to believe and I would hope that they would look at this very seriously and look at maybe their policing policies. But here's what I'm saying to you. We have to look back in the historical aspect of this nation. There's been confrontations within this nation. There's been things that have happened where lives have been lost senselessly, aimlessly, uselessly. I mean, some people, you know, they don't want to bring it up, but Emmett Till, 14-year-old young boy, who lost his life for doing something that most young boys do. They look at women and they're attracted. It's their hormonal change. Their body's changing. Had he had known it would have amounted to that, would he have done it? Probably not. But we're talking about a 14-year-old boy. We're talking about young men all over. All I'm saying is that what Ferguson should do is have us reflect on the reality that we have an issue in America as it deals with race, as it deals with law enforcement involved within the community, and the community involved within law enforcement. As it involves people's attitudes about change. First change has to be with self. If you don't realize as a law enforcement officer that there is a problem, then it's to naught. If you don't realize as a community person that there is a problem, that you have to be accountable to the things that you do, then it's all for naught. See, what's going to happen is you have a lot of people now with Ferguson. The same thing with Rodney King. Same thing with Trayvon Martin. Same thing that has been happening back in the day with many mass riots or things that dealt with race. Ferguson is not nothing new. Ferguson is just in the media now that it can go viral. Shoot, that's all it is. The displacement and stopping and brutality that has affected law enforcement and has infiltrated it, it is a disease. And it has to be addressed.
Really? Relax. I just want to make sure that this is a space. This is a space where.
Silence.
Listen up, guys. Come on.
Medium, back up. Back up. You went in the street a minute ago, so back up.
I want to say one word. I want to say the word that we've come here to open the lines of communication. And so it's the first step. So I wanted to.
Okay, I want to listen. I want to listen what you have to say.
We want to listen to one person. Be quiet.
And everybody, mutual respect.
I want to listen what you have to say, and I want to tell you that I've actually talked to some of the people that have been meeting with you, and I've asked that I could come and meet with you and hear the issues and explain some things to you. But I want to listen. So I'm not here to tell you anything. I want to listen, and I can tell you I am listening to you. And I am going to tell you I agree with some of the things that you're saying. Our methods may be different, but I am going to tell you that I am not going to have guys up here to fight you.
They already did.
Listen, guys.
Silence.
Give us a second.
Okay?
The front line is listening.
And I'm also going to tell you that my tasks are, and my authority is not here at Ferguson PD. And I'm going to tell you that my authority here is not in Ferguson PD. And some of the things that happened yesterday, this 5-second rule, I found out about today. I'd never heard of a 5-second rule. I didn't know that happened.
That's right.
But I am going to tell you, when I came out tonight, we were being peaceful. We closed down the street, and I'm not against you. And I said that from the start. You can protest peaceful, you can protest, and you can protest as long as you want. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure your rights are preserved and everybody's here in a safe manner. Okay? That's all that I can promise, and that's all that I can do. But I can tell you that we can't, I don't want anybody to get hurt. We can't be shooting guns in the air.
That wasn't us.
Silence. Let him talk.
And I understand that today. And today, before I got here, I was on CNN. And the guy from CNN asked me.
Front line is listening.
And the guy from CNN asked, he said, those two shootings, was that related to the protesters? And I said, that would be unfair. That's right. I said, that would be unfair because it's not. It's not. And I can tell you that I believe that 99% of people are good and are protesting their rights. And I've told you on several occasions how proud I am of you having it. I said, I may disagree sometimes, but I am proud of it. And so all I'm telling you is I'm not against you, and you can stand here and protest. And I was actually at my home. I was at my home. And when I saw what I saw, I came up here to stop it. And we are not going to have battle here. We're not. And we're not. So if you want to protest, you can protest. But I want to hear what you want to say. And all the meetings that I go to, I've been saying the problem is that you guys aren't sitting in the meetings. You're not in the meetings. The only people who are in the meetings are people in suits and ties, people that don't live in this community, people that have never lived in this community, and people that don't have the issues that we're protesting about. And so the people that you're meeting with, whether it's Antonio French, the ministers, if you want me to come out, whoever it is, if you want me to come out and sit and talk to you and you tell me your concerns, I am willing to do that. I am. So
when can that happen? When can that happen?
It can happen. It can happen anytime. I actually have been trying to find out where you've been meeting at.
Let's talk right now. Every day.
I can't argue with you. I can't. I can only do the tasks that I have. I'm not in charge of the court. I'm not in charge of this case at all. But I can tell you what I am in charge of, and that's making sure that your rights are preserved. If you want to talk to me, that's why I came here and said I want to listen. And I truly am listening. And the things that I hear, the things that I know that are concerns, when I meet with the governor, my colonel, or whoever else, I talk about those issues. And so if you want to talk, we can talk. If there's times where you want me to come out and meet with you, I am willing to do that. I am willing to do that.
Excuse me.
And I'll bring whoever you ask me to bring that needs to listen.
I'm making arrests.
I will do that.
Do you have the power to release those ones that been arrested for those charges at 5 seconds?
Let the front line talk. Let the front line talk.
Front line is listening. Silence. Front line is listening. Keep talking. We listen. Front line is listening.
Can you release those charges?
Front line is listening.
This is what I will tell. This is what I would tell you. I have talked to our officers of the Highway Patrol. I've talked to Chief Belmer of St. Louis County, and we are not going to enforce a 5-second rule.
There you go. That's what we're talking about.
Thank you. All right.
That's what we're talking about.
Why was he arrested? Reverend ankles. Why was he arrested?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Well, we don't want to talk. It's over. We have nothing else to talk about.
One more.
We have nothing else to talk about.
Let me say this. Let me say this.
Are you going to let him go? Are you going?
He was the first protester arrested.
I want people to be quiet. Can I talk? Will you please let him go? He was praying. He was exercising his right to pray. Can you please let him go?
And was never asked to step out the street.
Was never asked to step out the street.
Never asked to move at all.
Absolutely.
That was not my
If you
arrest.
cannot do that, you can leave now.
But you command here. You command here.
I don't command Ferguson PD. I do not command Ferguson PD.
Don't command them.
One line listening.
Silence.
We'll get him out.
Silence.
If you don't want to.
No more.
Silence.
I don't command Ferguson PD.
Hey, I got a question for the people who work. I work too. You ain't up here.
Yeah, you're not up here. Frontline is listening. Frontline is listening. This is not a press conference. 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 He wanted to talk to the front line. We have spoke. If he cannot let him out of jail, he can leave.
With people in my community because I work 2 to 10 every day. I'm out here every weekend. I want to know when I can talk with you guys with what I've been through and what's going on with my ground. I want to know when I can talk with y'all, really. And I'm not a great person, but I just want to know when I can have a fair chance to meet with you guys because I work 2 to 10 every day. And
And ma'am, I am willing to talk to you. I don't care what time it is. If it's 10 o'clock, I am.
Yes, sir. I just want to. Well, can I give you
If you give me your number, I'll meet with you.
Well, I'll shout it out. I don't care. 314.
What? Okay.
623.
Say it one more time for him.
314.
I'm gonna write it. Hold on, I'm gonna write it in my hand.
314-623-8994. I live on Highmark. My name is Sharonay Winfield, and I want to talk to anybody. I'm here every day. But I'm
So I think there was also a request to, if the officers were to disperse, then peaceful demonstrators.
I hope this meeting got y'all some clarification on. They ain't gonna do shit.
Is that something that?
What I'm hoping is that everyone will look at Ferguson and say, that could be Wilmington, that could be Philadelphia, that could be New York, that could be LA, that could be Buck Tussle out there in the Skokies. Wherever you are, we have to generally look at it is this really what the values of the Constitution has set forth for us to enact as a community or a nation of people? Is the Constitution truly for everyone? Or is it for a select few? So I'm going to use a statement that Brother Umar Hassan El always uses. He's a veteran, Vietnam veteran, and he says that the things that are happening, for you to allow to happen and not even say anything or take any type of responsibility or accountability for, is un-American and unconstitutional.